Coming up today on Locked On at Texas Tech, it's a Red Raider football post-mortem as we discuss what we got right and what we got wrong in 2023. Next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to be with you again on Locked On at Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to see you again. And we've got a few different things to discuss today. We're back looking in the rear view once again at a football season gone by. We'll get to some of what we got right, some of what we got wrong as far as preseason expectations for the Red Raiders. But first, we will look ahead to United Supermarkets Arena as Grant McCaslin and the Red Raider men's basketball team are back on the floor. It's Sam Houston coming to town, the Bearcats on the opposite bench coming up tonight, and we are still very much in take care of business mode as Big 12 play is looming. You got a few ball games here you're expected to win, obviously, but anything can happen in the wide, weird world of college sports on occasion. And I think you said a week ago, as you get kind of into this strange holiday time, sometimes guys just forget they're a part of a basketball program or a basketball team and what exactly is required of them. But we avoided catastrophe last time around, even though I think all would indicate, and you use this word as well, disjointed was kind of the theme of the day as Texas Tech got a win last time out in a matinee affair. But curious to see what is in store for the Red Raiders tonight as we set the table for Tech and Sam Houston State.
Yeah, these games are still. This is one of the other games that stress coaches out. Just like the game after Christmas, it's like, okay, can we get them back? They've been gone. We got to get them back in the routine and get their mind back on business. And it's like you see conference play down the hallway, and it's just not there yet. You know, the lights on. But it's not there yet, and so it's not time to go in that room yet. But Sam Houston State, they're not great. This will be more about you tonight than anything. This will be more about how you kind of hit the ground running and how much energy you have. Typically with these dates, not a ton of students there. You don't necessarily get a big crowd. So again, it's just all the elements are there for kind of like trap game type scenarios. Same thing on New Year's Day, when North Alabama shows up for these Red Raiders. But then that's it as far as tune-ups go. Then you're done, and then from that on, it's like, okay, you better tie those shoes up tight, boy. I mean, because you were off to the races. But tonight, what you ultimately want to see is like the main thing, and this is where it got a little. And I thought about this after the game was over. But you played UTA, it gets a little disjointed at times. You kind of too many turnovers. You ultimately kept them away and held them at arm's length and a lot. But Devin Cambridge would have been really good in that game because it was more of an up and down game and a transition game, and you had some poor decision making. But that's where he was so good. But what you want to see tonight is that, the turnover number always tells so much of the story on how well or how locked in you are. Are you trying to force stuff that's not there? Are you panicking? Are you just making, boneheaded decisions? Because, and Joe and Pop had been so good lately, but they combined for, I think it was like 7 or 8 of your 17 turnovers, and those are the two guards that have the ball in their hands the most, and you look up and Darion Williams, who they've been letting him play out of the post as kind of a point forward, if you will. I mean, he's got 10 turnovers combined in the last 2 games. Now, he's got some assist numbers to go with it, but he's got to be better there. He's a big-time high-level passer. But he's got to cut down on that. And I think teams are going to scout, like when he's backing down right there, if the double team comes, this is where he's throwing it, and they've stolen that cross-court pass to the opposite wing multiple times. So anyway, that's what I would look at tonight is just kind of your overall energy, how you start it, turnover numbers, things like that. That'll tell you a lot about how focused they are. Then they have obviously a couple days to settle in after this one, and then you play again on New Year's Day.
Yeah, you're giving me flashbacks when you said, can we get him back here of like Rodman in Vegas during the playoffs or something like that? Like, will we ever see him again? Can we get him back here?
And if you're watching The Last Dance, like the little hour counter, it's like, hey, I'll be back here. I'll be back here in 48 hours. I promise. I swear to you, I'll be back before. Just give me 48. And it was like rolling to 72, then 96, and then next thing you know, Michael Jordan's knocking on the door, and Carmen Electra is hiding behind a sheet,
right?
In the hotel room. Like, I'm sorry, is he supposed to be somewhere? Yeah.
We haven't quite gotten there yet.
Get your ass up, Dennis.
We haven't quite gotten there yet. Thank goodness.
Right,
but
right.
Leaving the last game, with all due respect to UTA, whenever you've played some of the opponents that you have and you've had a healthy turnover number, and then you see that opponent and it's 17, I don't know how you're not just looking straight in the mirror as far as the problem with. I mean, that's all you, right? I don't know how else to shake it up. I mean, again, credit to UTA, but it's not like some frenetic defense out there. I don't think that was causing that. I mean, you have the closest seat in the house, so maybe I'm wrong, but
there were some unforced errors, or just it's simple stuff like not no pass fake or ball fake, and then you just kind of telegraph something, or again on a fast break, you're like, boy, if I throw this pass just perfect through these two defenders, it bounces right here, boy, it's going to look sweet, and then it's a low percentage play, and it burns you, and that's why coaches will preach till it's boring. I get it, but make the simple play. Like, we don't need that right there. You don't, dribble it one more time, or throw it to the dude that's just standing out here at half court, and let's get into something. Otherwise, the ball goes out of bounds, and then coach is over there going, "What are you doing?" And then we're walking the other way because you turn it over. But it's hard to tell guys like that when you're trying to. And that's what Grant thought at the beginning of the season. I think he felt like there were guys on his team pressing and trying to do too much, trying to play to the hype of the building, maybe, when you did have bigger student crowds and bigger crowds in general. And so because most of their high turnover games have been at home for whatever reason.
Looking forward to the ball game tonight, and we'll be back on the other side tomorrow to chop it up for better or worse. But as for now, let's get back to football, and let's get back to 2023, where we got it right, where we got it wrong. First, today's episode brought to you by Gametime, and you shouldn't have to sweat it out when buying tickets to your favorite events, and with Gametime, you won't, because it's always a breeze using the Gametime app, where you're going to find killer last-minute deals, views from every seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it begins, which means Gametime is the place to find last-minute seats for any event. The fastest, easiest way to buy tickets, and not just fast, but it's also secure and simple to use when you download the Gametime app. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime by downloading the Gametime app, creating an account, and then use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. That's Locked On College, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use our promo code Locked On College for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today for last-minute tickets at the lowest price, guaranteed. This is based in preseason expectation, things that you thought were going to come to fruition that either did or didn't. Let us know in the YouTube comments where you stand in some of those conversations. And I'll kick it off, Chris. This is kind of a strange deal for me because my preseason prediction was a 7-5 regular season record. I was off by one game. That meant the sky was not falling for me as things proceeded towards 500 territory, like they might have been if somebody really thought, Big 12 title game or some of the highest expectations that were out there. So as I'm racking my brain last night thinking about, okay, what am I going to put on my list here? Unfortunately, in a way, some of the stuff that I think I got right were things that I thought would be average to poor, and they turned out to be average to poor. So this doesn't all have to be a conversation like, hey, I thought this would be really good, and it was really good. And where I would start the conversation is, okay, why did I think you're going to be closer to 7-5 kind of territory? Well, the offensive line. I did not expect to take some giant leap forward. I didn't expect to all of a sudden be, stacked with like all conference stuff. I thought maybe you would be better than you were the year before. I don't even know how I feel about that really, if you were or weren't, or maybe you're just very similar to what you were the year before. But unfortunately, I would have loved to have been wrong on that. But that was one of the things, I guess, on my list that I feel like I did get right, in that you still had a long, long way to go in order to be something that was going to be beyond a 500-ish kind of regular season. I don't know necessarily if it's fair to really, sum it all up very succinctly because of some of the shuffling you had to do there, some of the injuries that impacted guys like Cole Spencer or eventually Rusty Stats. And again, just some of what you were forced to deal with there. But I got to say, I'm disgusted that this is on, I guess, my right list. But yeah, your offensive line did not take some giant step forward, unfortunately. How do you feel about the progress from 22 to 23? And maybe an offensive line expectation for you?
Yeah, and the hard part about what we thought, if we're just talking offense here, what we thought we were going to get is not what we got, or what we hoped to get isn't what we got, however you want to phrase it. And it's hard to, because I guess the one thing I was right on, on offense was that you're going to need more than one quarterback. Well, yeah, you did.
Another disgusting entry. Something we wish we weren't.
And that's why I was so big on like the Cameron Brown addition recently, just adding another element to that room just to protect you a bit. And I guess I'm thinking like, okay, you're going to need more than one quarterback, but I mean, sometimes you're like, man, he just can't play this week. He'll be back next week. But again, you're dealing with, unfortunately, these long-term injuries like with Shuck, or lingering ones. And really the what sucks is we never got to see this offensive line, never got a chance to see them progress. Cole Spencer is out for the year fairly early on. Then and I guess it was at BYU, Rusty Stats, bad injury to his elbow, can play guard, can't really snap it. And so it just never, because we saw the offensive line as they wanted it initially, but what I'm talking about is, I think had they had a chance to stay there and continue to get better and gel and all that and get into their groove a bit, I think it would have improved greatly.
Yes,
compared to where it was, but we never got that. And that's why I guess what I'm saying, it's almost like it's hard to grade some of these things when you didn't actually get what you hope to see and what you thought you were grading, if that makes sense.
And for that position, right? I mean, you need weeks stacked on weeks with that position. Same 5 guys, same 5 spots.
And what's fascinating to me, and I talked about this with you, Cowan, like a week ago, Kansas State was thought they had all 5 starters back on the offensive line. Even and that's why so many people were high on K-State. They were picked to finish ahead of you in the conference standings and all that. Even they moved their pieces around with 5 guys that were solidified and had a great year last year.
Yeah.
It was a bit different, and we need to tweak this and all that. That's just kind of how that group goes. But they eventually kind of got it and started playing really good football. But that's what's frustrating to me, is that you just never really got to see that group in its pure form, if that makes sense, to grow. I mean, yeah, people can say, the first 2 or 3 games or whatever it was, the group that you thought. But I wanted to see what did Game 7 look like with that group? What did Game 9 look like with that group? But to their credit, you did well enough with Jacoby Jackson and Stats at guard and all those things, and Wilburn back over to center, that Taj Brooks, I mean, that offensive line deserves a lot of credit. As average as it was at times, that's the deal. But yeah, we were, offensively, the biggest, to me, I'm sorry, but the biggest disappointment on the team it comes from one of 2 things, based on how I thought it would be. And maybe it's my fault. I don't know for thinking this way. I really thought your receivers would be different. I thought there would be some next steps taken, like some progression, and they're just not a lot of juice. I mean, Coy Aiken was a bright spot. I think Dre McCray had some spots. I mean, Jerron Bradley, Miles Price, was pretty good at times. Other times there were some key drops. I mean, how many drops did you have?
Yeah.
Jerron Bradley was clutch at the end of the Kansas game, but that was like the exception rather than the rule.
Which was similar to a previous year, right? You'd see him, and then you wouldn't see him for a few weeks.
Inconsistent.
Yeah.
Inconsistent. And then Loic and Sparkman were just kind of just guys, really, not really a factor at all. And you look up, and there's just not a lot of juice. Joey talked about it a ton. There's no yards after the catch with this group. We've got to be better there. Xavier White was a huge bright spot when he would get the ball because he easily, he had 20 or 30 fewer targets and almost had as many yards after the catch as Bradley did. It's
crazy.
It is crazy. It's like the guy you just brought in, Josh Kelly. He had I want to say 30 fewer targets and 400 more receiving yards than Jerron Bradley. What's that tell you?
Mm-hmm.
That's what you hope you're adding. But that was what was wrong with this group. The other thing, man, is that I didn't think it would be as good as last year. I just didn't think the drop off would be as dramatic with your pressure and your edge guys. Steve Linton, still an incomplete. I don't really know. I kind of saw what he's capable of, but never, it was like in Waco, but everybody was eating that night, and so I don't want to really give him too much credit.
You got a sack that night at one point.
Yeah, that's right. Yum, 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 yum. Yeah. I think that was a scene from The Hangover. Yeah, it's like sack lunch. Yeah, like crab cakes and football. That's what Maryland does. So he's an incomplete. Miles Cole was just kind of solid, but there was just not, because for all the talk about too many turnovers on offense and all the ineptness of the offense, or whether it was play calling or no juice or whatever you wanted to point to, man, defensively, there wasn't just a whole lot of plays being made on that side of the ball either from the guys that were older, were thought to be. You don't have any draft picks on the offensive side, maybe Taj, but there's a reason he came back. But
right.
Miles Cole's probably going to get picked. Jalen Hutchings may have a chance to get picked. Rabbit, could have, but just not a lot of turnovers, not a lot of takeaways, not a lot of game-changing plays. Now in the bowl game, they showed up. That those plays were being made, but I just, the Miles Cole, Linton, just kind of your pressure guys were, I think, a bit off and a lot less than what I would have thought.
Yeah, that's something that was on my list as well, and it kind of ties into a bigger picture, whether it was just purely getting after the quarterback and some of those dynamic plays made off of the edge. Thought you would have some more of that, but also tying into the turnover numbers and just dynamic plays made overall by the defense. Some of the veteran experience that you had on the back end within your group of DBs, I thought would pay off, and we just never really saw it pay off as far as taking the football away. And that, that's something, this is rocket science here for you. That's something that we'll cover for a multitude of cents. If you're not all that deep, not all that talented defensively, just take the football away, find a way to do that, and you're probably going to have a competitive season more often than not. But that was definitely on my wrong list. Did not see that come to fruition for a variety of reasons. Something else on my wrong list. First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Heat up the action and keep the sports flames stoked this winter with America's #1 sportsbook and the official sportsbook of Locked On. There's nothing nicer than cuddling up by the warmth of a nice prop bet or a player parlay. And if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action with their safe, secure, and easy-to-use app where it's all at your fingertips. And of course, when you win with FanDuel, you're always paid instantly. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 back if your team wins. You'd be a fool not to take a bite out of that apple. So get to FanDuel.com/lockedon and sign up today for your shot at $150 in bonus bets with any $5 money line bet that hits with FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Something else on my wrong list. And this is kind of in the category of one positive, one negative. You mentioned it yesterday. Taj Brooks got that wrong. Who had him penciled in for the year that he was going to have? Knew that he had been a great piece in some prior years. And one of my favorite Red Raiders. Love the way he ran the football. Love the tandem of he and Sondre Thompson. I said going back a year ago that when it was all said and done, those were the two most reliable playmakers that you had on the offensive side of the football. They were turning chicken spit into chicken soup just about every week. But without the other part of that duo being there, envisioning Taj Brooks being a featured ball carrier and the guy that would break more tackles than anybody in the football bowl subdivision and having the yardage that he did at the end of the year, I got that wrong. And that's one I was glad to get wrong, Chris, because he had an incredible season and there's no way that I was predicting that.
Yeah, and we were probably wrong about the impact that, because I think we thought, at least I did. I mean, I know what he can do. You even saw glimpses of it in the bowl game, but we kind of also thought that Cameron Valdez would be like a different looking kind of complement to Taj, and it would be this 1-2 punch again with Taj being the lead back. But Cameron was not what we had hoped he would be either, at least to this point. I'm glad he's coming back. And I hope that he can kind of take some of the pressure off of Taj Brooks. But yeah, I mean, that's also something that we were, glad to be wrong about in one sense, but there's a reason why we were wrong. Cause I mean, I think, number 0 could have impacted that conversation as well, which is what we kind of thought. And I mean, remember all the talk. Well, we think Cameron was going to be so much better when you pair him next to Taj because it's so much of a different running style. Right. It's like they got used to Sondre and Taj. It's the same style, and the defense doesn't have to adjust. With Cameron in there, he's more of a north-south one cut and go, a little more speed, things like that. But it's just Taj's emergence. And then Cameron being dinged up and just kind of not being as durable as you would hope, and also not being able to pick up the blitz as well, kind of limits what he's able to do. And Taj obviously took advantage to the tune of what 1,400 yards, I guess.
The Valdez thing, I just look straight at myself and say, well, you were wrong about that, and it was your fault that you were wrong about that, because the first time that I saw him in action, I'm thinking this cat is not going to be what I anticipated. He's too little. Number one, like a nice change of pace or complimentary back, sure, but in a very small dose, because he wasn't going to stand up to some beating, and that probably ties into the pass blocking stuff too. I'm not saying he's the tiniest man we've ever seen, but when I really got to see him in the Big 12 or versus Oregon or some of these guys, I'm thinking, what was I thinking in assuming that he would just step in and here's Sondre Thompson of another variety? I knew he wasn't going to be the same type, but I blame myself for that, and I have already given myself a whipping for it, if you're wondering out there. On the other side of being wrong in a negative way, a way in which, look, I'm glad to be wrong about Taj Brooks, but a way in which I wish I wasn't wrong. I had much higher expectations for Tyler Shuck. Even as a healthy quarterback, I don't feel like we saw real good quarterback play, real impactful quarterback play. And I know you may look at some of the statistics, some of the yardage. He ran for over 100 yards against Oregon to go with his 282 on 24 for 38 passing. But there's one very specific thing for a guy that was in his fifth year, I guess, of college football, or maybe fifth year of college football, 3 picks in that game. And I'm thinking, man, if you're a gray-haired, old-head college quarterback, I would like to believe that one category that is safe is going to be giving the football away. And for, whatever lack of playmaking ability some might have felt like was there with him or whatever ways you were disappointed, to me, the turnover column was just one that I was kind of blown away by, and for all the wrong reasons. I'm thinking you come into the year, you have a healthy Tyler Shuck, then you've got a reliable quarterback spot. And I got to tell you, and I don't know if you agree or disagree with this, and again, want to hear from everybody in the audience whether or not you agree or disagree with this. those first 2 weeks of the season, I look at the stat line against Wyoming, 31 for 47, 338, 3 TDs, 1 interception. I'm thinking, all right, well, that doesn't sound bad. But there were not plays made for like a middle third of that game. And then you get to Oregon. I've already run this down, some of the turnovers that impacted that game. I really expected a lot more. And I know that we'll remember all of the injury setbacks and things that limited him in that way. But I don't know if we're talking about that in the first 2 weeks of the season. And I still was a little bit disappointed. So I was wrong with some of my too high expectations, I think, for Tyler Shuck, who's now a Louisville Cardinal.
Yeah, and I think though that you have reason to feel like you had high expectations and a reason to have a high bar because of what you had seen with him to end last season.
In the bowl game specifically, right?
Absolutely.
MVP.
And I can't unsee all of those things too.
Yeah.
And that's what is frustrating to me too, is that like the offensive line, I think he would have absolutely figured it out. He was too locked in, too sharp. He's just too good at the position for him to continue kind of without being like really good to me.
Yeah.
But and I like, would you had he not gotten hit with that horrible ankle, leg break and all that in Morgantown, would he have figured it out that day? And it's funny because people were obviously talking really loud about Tyler and replacing Barron and. We're placing him with Barron, in September, and as we kind of, I'm sure you heard it like I did.
Oh yeah.
And it's funny because back in I don't know, was it 3 or 4 weeks ago? It's like I don't see it with Morton, man. I don't know, man. Who else we got? Who else we got coming? And I'm just like, you can't. I mean, it's just.
You got to commit at some point.
I know. It's like,
it's kind of like, have we hired 6 consecutive really bad offensive coordinators, or are we possibly wrong as fans? Is what I'm saying.
It's like fans want you to be like, or have like John Gruden as the head coach, and like, remember how he used to collect quarterbacks?
Yes.
He'd have like 6 of them. Coach, we don't have enough roster spots for all these dudes. Yeah, well, kind of flavor of the week type deal, guys. Right. I'm just not sure how I'm feeling on a Sunday, but on Monday and Tuesday, these guys, whatever. So you can't just, But it's just funny you say that because I think there's some people that like a month ago they would have been like, Barron's just a huge disappointment, and I'm just like, you just can't keep doing this, folks. You gotta, keep doing it. That's right. But that's the hard part about Tyler is that, I do absolutely think he would have, and maybe I would have been wrong there, but I'd seen too much at the end of last season, and they were all wins. I'd seen too much in the spring and the summer, and just how good it was, and it's like, that's what's crazy is like, because what was deadly most of the spring and the summer. At times when he wasn't hurt was Coy Aiken catching long balls from Tyler Shuck. And those two were really never allowed to be on the field together because at the time that Coy Aiken was kind of coming back from his injury, Tyler Shuck was just getting re-injured and was out. Yeah. And then in the spring and the summer, Coy Aiken broke, collarbone twice, once in the spring, once in the summer, or in August. And he missed significant parts of those. And so it's just like that whole thing, because that was when they were both there and healthy and right, it was scary good, but we never, that's what's frustrating about this sport sometimes.
All right. Anything else on your list we hadn't hit, or is this enough self-flagellation and immolation for one episode?
Well, I felt like we were worried about your kicker. I don't think you have a question mark about your kicker going into next year. He missed in the bowl game. It was his first miss under 40 yards. He would have been perfect for that. But that's what I had said. He could just make the ones that he needs to. You'll be just fine. And in large in part, he did. And it's like you go back to that Wyoming game, and like if you grade him on that one, kind of like Shuck, you're like, oh. But he figured it out. He got time to, he made 3 50-plus yarders. So I guess in a way we were wrong there to be worried about it.
And happy to be wrong about it. Yeah,
absolutely. So anyway, but that's I just wanted to finish it up with that one. So anyway, credit to my man Gino.
Getting it done. And to Kenny Perry, best special teams coach in the country. And
Hey.
I liked, I can't remember who it was. He got an addition in either the portal or recruiting class. And I think maybe it was Blanchard or somebody tweeting, Kenny Perry just became a better special teams coach because of this cat they're bringing in.
Jack Burgess.
Yeah, that's who it was. That's who it was.
Yeah, who was the second leading punter in, I think, FCS or something. Yeah, so
it's funny how the Jimmies and Joes can help you with the X's and O's, right?
1,000%. and yet Kenny hopes that Jack never punts the ball.
Right.
Yeah. So
let us know how you see it. What did you get right? What did you get wrong as far as preseason expectations? Would love to hear from you as always in the YouTube comments. And we're back on the other side. We'll recap whatever goes down at United Supermarkets Arena. Chris, appreciate the time as always, man. And we'll wrap up the week tomorrow.
Yep. Hope to see everybody tonight at the arena against the Bearcats. With a K. So we'll be back to tomorrow morning to kind of break all that down and get into some more football talk and all that as we approach 2024. I know, isn't that wild? Getting older or wiser. I don't know which, maybe both.
Still here, still kicking. What were the Mayans thinking? I have no idea. All right, we're back tomorrow. We're going to get into a portal conversation. Best additions yet within the portal. And some of those that we'll mention have got big impact on a conversation we want to get into also regarding the look of the offensive line in 2024. So hope you'll join us for that. Always appreciate you being out there. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. And we hope to see you back here for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.